that there is a real risk if you are that slacker barista who wasted 7 years in college studying completely useless things, now has loans and can't get a job. Joe Biden just gave you 20 grand. Like, holy cow, 20 grand. That, maybe you weren't going to vote in November and suddenly you just got 20 grand. And, if you can, get off the bong for a minute and head down to the voting station or just send in your mail-in ballot that the Democrats have helpfully sent you, it could drive up turnout.
Texas Senator Ted Cruz had this to say of student debt relief. Meanwhile,
that is most of the in this country.
Yeah.
Is like everybody goes, I did it. You
How dare you forgive student loans? I paid all mine back.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
All right, well.
I mean, dude, it took me a great amount of luck to pay mine back, and I'm still for forgiveness.
When I think about the amount I paid back versus the amount I took out,
it's crazy.
I get furious.
Yeah, I took
and then
out,
I'm like, but you know what? This is how it should be sold. It's not helping young people. It's a you to the bank.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. The banks are mad.
The bank isn't making money. So stop getting mad at the kids.
Well, I think that's
they also suck, but stop getting mad.
Sure, the kids suck. But I think what you're seeing is it's exactly that, where the banks are like in people's ears where they go, can you believe? They're like, they're sitting there with a mustache and they go, can you believe these kids? And they're like, right? And they're like, definitely not the banks. The banks are cool.
They take off their mustache with just another mustache under it.
Oh, man, we should go to the bank. And you're like, why do you keep talking about banking?
Man, can you believe they're just hurting all the banks? The bank's just a little guy trying to help out the big guys.
The thought the banks are the little guys when they've just been butt-fucking Americans the entire time they've existed.
The whole time.
Comedians Dan Soder and Michelle Wolf had a lot to say on the subject, even dismantling Cruz's talking points on that very topic.
It's past midnight. I'm standing on the shore of the Rio Grande. The water is right behind me. I'm down on the Texas border, along with 18 senators. We made the trip to see the crisis that is playing out. We've already gone to detention facilities that are overrun, many of them with families, small children. We saw multiple mothers who were nursing infant babies who had just crossed over and were being housed in outdoor holding pens where they were sleeping on the floor and nursing their babies.
A man who pretends to care. Cruz is as diabolical as they come.
Who is the Steven Seagal of the U.S. Senate? Like, who sucks?
Cruz.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sucks.
I have said that I probably like Ted Cruz more than most of my colleagues like Ted Cruz, and I hate Ted Cruz. He's your senator.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh, God.
We see the signs. I know. He's a real piece.
Well,
he's so hated. It's weird when somebody keeps getting, you're like, everybody I know hates him.
Everybody.
I'm talking about him on stage in any market, in any place. And people all laugh at making fun of him. They all boo him. It doesn't matter where you are. And you're like, how does somebody get elected like this?
There's something wrong with him. I mean, he's smart.
Tom Segura, who has a story of his own pertaining to Cruz, hosted former Minnesota Senator and comedian Al Franken, who gave anecdotes of his own. If one thing is universal, it is this: everyone hates Ted Cruz.
And so we need to break up the means of controlling the citizenry. I want an unruly, uncontrollable American, we the people.
Who actually buys this nonsense? And in addition, who votes for this?
Amy's doing this dinner, and she would not let me write jokes for her because everyone had always asked, did Al write jokes? But she let me do rewrites. Mm-hmm. Okay. So she comes up with this really good joke, which is when most people think of a bad cruise, they think of Carnival, but we in the Senate think of Ted. Next Thursday, I see her going to different senators who she's written jokes about, and so she heads to Ted, and I go, I want to be on this. Yeah. And so we're having, and she says, and she softened the joke. She says, Ted, I'm doing a gridiron dinner, and I'm doing a joke about you, and I wonder if I could run it by you. He goes, I'll tell you what, I believe in the First Amendment. You go ahead and tell me your little joke. So she goes, when most people think of a difficult cruise, she softened it for him. they think of Carnival, but we Democrats in the Senate think of Ted. And he goes, instead of difficult, why don't you make it a challenging cruise?
Oh.
Yeah, and she kind of going like, oh, now it's not funny. And he's smart.
Yeah.
But he's smart. So I said, Ted, I've done a rewrite, which I think is a lot better. And I see Amy go like, oh, no. But also, I want to be here for this. So he goes, okay, what is it? I go, when most people think of a cruise as full of,
Ooh.
they think of Carnival, but we think of Ted.
Ooh.
And he just went, huh?
Yeah.
And I went,
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
But he was a terrible, terrible colleague, and just everyone hates him.
True, and Franken would give the Lindsey Graham quote on how much everyone despises him.
Evil can occur whether in Parkland or in a church in Central Texas or in schools across the country. I mean, there are murderers. Evil is sadly always present, and we need to do what we can to act to prevent it. Sometimes you see brave heroes who are able to step forward, and sometimes you have people like in Sutherland Springs who are armed, who can engage the killer and stop them and save people's lives.
Well, that's what I was saying. Do your public schools allow it? Because I know every state is different. Do your public schools allow armed security?
Oh, sure. There are certainly some schools that have armed security, and that can make a difference, but it varies school by school.
Because this man is bought and paid for by the gun lobby. This is what he says all the time. Texas Senator Ted Cruz is despicable. He is a sellout to the American public. He's also weird. Remember when he liked this tweet? You know, when Elon allowed us to see liked tweets? That was odd. But then there's also this to add to it.
There's a comedian named Tom Segura who does a stand-up special. I don't know if you know this. And he tells a story that's allegedly about you.
Yeah, it's complete fiction. It's utterly made up. I've never met the guy. I've sadly watched it on Twitter. It is twisted and deranged, and it's complete fiction, which of course means every lefty believes it's true because it's horrible about me, and he just made it up and got some laughs from lefties who hate me.
Okay.
Before we get into Segura's story, here was the comedian's response.
To be fair,
Yeah.
I toured the world, and everybody hates you. Like, it wasn't
It's
just,
not just the liberals.
lefties. Like, people in every market all hated you equally.
But that's why he's just such a good choice for the story. It's perfect.
I mean,
the story about him.
You know,
Beautiful.
people asked, like, was it really him? And I say, you know, maybe.
He looks great, though. I do like that suit jacket.
That's a nice suit jacket.
Yeah, he looks good.
I'll say this. People hate you, but that's a nice suit jacket.
Yeah, you look good, though.
Yeah.
At least you look nice.
Yeah, that's a
cool.
very nice jacket.
So what was the bit? In Segura's comedy special, Sledgehammer, he tells the story of moving into a new neighborhood, which is quite wealthy because of the success of his stand-up. He goes out for a morning walk with his coffee. Lo and behold, unprompted, Ted Cruz walks out of his house and allegedly asks him, "Hey, you're the comedian. Where do you think the term MFer comes from?" Segura would say he had no clue, to which Ted replies, "Do you think it's from people doing that?" Cruz would then transition to ask Segura about the term daughter effers. Segura would reply, "That's not an expression anybody actually uses," adding, "I don't like this at all." Cruz would scramble back into his home. As Segura's walk was coming to a close, he passes Cruz's house once more, and what do you know, Ted pops out again. Cruz would allegedly utter, "That was weird," indicating he did not want the conversation to end that way. Cruz would try to explain what he thinks both terms meant, and to close out his joke, Segura brings it home. "Wow, I am so impressed that you put it together so quickly. I could see why you may or may not be Ted Cruz." Hey, I appreciate you watching. Now, if you can, please do become a channel member by going to youtube.com/TYTsports and clicking the join button. If that's too much for you, you can just go to tyt.com/join to become a member. It helps all of us out here at the Young Turks and keeps our network afloat. In addition, you could follow me on my socials on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Appreciate the love. Have a great day. dude?
I actually think Kanye was on point.
A man who says this of himself.
Is my soul dark? Perhaps.
Is with Glenn Beck's network. Who is that person?
Who needs to learn what here? This president, I think, has exposed himself as a guy over and over and over again who has a deep-seated hatred for white people.
Well, he's that guy.
What is it that Barack Obama knows that he won't even bother to meet with the guy to hear him out? Well, until, he changed his mind a couple of days later. He's a white CEO.
And his network, The Blaze, employs Jason Whitlock, which is not a shock to anyone. Now, this dude...
I think men are wired to do three things in particular amongst many other things. Protect, provide, and procreate. Go read. Why is it that men always have gone to battle while the women stay home?
That's TJ Moe. Some of y'all sports fans and football fans will remember that TJ Moe played for the University of Missouri. He was the typical run hard, gritty, high motor white football player that played receiver. He had 10 touchdowns over a 4-year career. Now, after Moe, fizzled out in the NFL, well, he joined Jason Whitlock's show as a co-host, and he gave such astute analysis as this.
These guys, Joe Biden is a self-loathing idiot. I mean, he hates white people. It is clear as day. He hates the idea of whiteness.
I need to be very clear about something, okay? TJ Moe is the ultimate bootlicker of Jason Whitlock, and thus he is doing the typical song and dance to go viral. And while I don't even want to do this clip, it is important that we call it out cohesively together. So let's go. He would write this. Who actually wants to watch 3 women stand around and talk about football? I do not. Let's go over those 3 women, shall we? One is Jess Sims, a host on ESPN's College Game Day. Another is Holly Rowe, arguably one of the best sideline reporters who has covered national championships. You can name the sport. A credible member of the media, esteemed reporter and journalist, and the exact same sentiment can be lent to Laura Rutledge, who is also in that photo, a Swiss Army knife who could do studio stuff. She could be doing the national championship game. She could be doing the SEC championship game where she's interviewing Kirby Smart on the podium after they defeated Texas. All of them know their stuff. Yet for Moe, that isn't good enough because all he sees is women. So he thinks there's no way that they should even be able to have the platform. They should not have the ability, the opportunity to talk about my love of football that I carry so near and dear to my heart. He doubled down, of course. This tweet upset some folks. So let me clarify. No one wants to listen to 3 women talk about football. Men are better at it. It's like asking cats to bark. I issue no apology and no retracts. Most people agree with me. They're just afraid to say it. Carry on with your outrage. No. I actually think what he's proving, first off, when it's such a Trumpian thing to say, most people seem to think I'm a good guy. Many people have said I'm the least racist person in the world. These most people, it's not a draw. It's not offering any conclusion on what you're saying other than I saw there were blue checks on Twitter that agreed with me. Cool. It's awesome. I've also seen a ton of women in sports who have taken you down, rightfully so. Now, what I think is pretty interesting is if you look at his bio, it is going to be so typical. Look at the banner photo. No surprise there. Second, Christian sports real estate culture. So much here, and y'all can go with the former. The latter, what culture are you bringing, my guy? Additionally, Christian, just the perfect cause here. So he would also tweet in support of this guy, writing, not a word Harrison Butker says here should be remotely controversial. Is that so? He's 100% correct. Those trying to convince women that being assistant vice president of lending and intentionally childless at age 40 is more fulfilling than making a family and home are evil. You heard it there. It's like if J.D. Vance was a dumb football guy. It's incredible. The replies here would be comical, according to TJ Moe. Women's self-reported happiness has been on a constant decline for the last 50 years. They've never had more rights, why did you put that in quotes, and never represented a larger portion of the workforce. They're having less kids than ever. Pretending this doesn't exist is silly. Once again, what we have is MAGA in the wild. We have a man who really thinks that he is the victim, and he's going after women's rights, not understanding, which go into his whole argument of why they don't want to have kids. And you clearly drawing a line in the sand on why you would potentially like forced births. Because you have a problem with women not fitting your own diabolical, immature, nonsensical definition of what you think they should be. It wouldn't surprise me if Mo was a Christian nationalist, considering what we are seeing and the people that he is praising.
As men, we set the tone of the culture. And when that is absent, disorder, dysfunction, and chaos set in. This absence of men in the home is what plays a large role in the violence we see all around the nation. Other countries do not have nearly the same absentee father rates as we find here in the U.S., and a correlation could be made in their drastically lower violence rates as well. Be unapologetic in your masculinity, fighting against the cultural emasculation of men. Do hard things. Never settle for what is easy. You might have a talent that you don't necessarily enjoy, but if it glorifies God, maybe you should lean into that over something that you might think suits you better. I speak from experience as an introvert who now finds myself as an amateur public speaker and an entrepreneur, something I never thought I'd be when I received my industrial engineering degree. While COVID might have played a large role throughout your formative years, it is not unique. Bad policies and poor leadership have negatively impacted major life issues. Things like abortion, IVF, surrogacy, euthanasia, as well as a growing support for degenerate cultural values in media, all stem from the pervasiveness of disorder. I can tell you that my beautiful wife, Isabel, would be the first to say that her life truly started when she began living her vocation as a wife and as a mother. I'm on this stage today and able to be the man I am because I have a wife who leans into her vocation. I'm beyond blessed with the many talents God has given me, but it cannot be overstated that all of my success is made possible because a girl I met in band class back in middle school would convert to the faith, become my wife, and embrace one of the most important titles of all, homemaker.
Despicable. Oh, let's also not forget this. In 2015, the University of Missouri football team decided to protest the school's response, or lack thereof, to many racist incidents that occurred on campus. Jonathan Butler, seen here in red, stopped eating, officially launching a hunger strike because, per The Athletic, frustration mounted from the administration's handling of those racist incidents in Columbus. Butler was part of a student activist group which called itself Concerned Student 1950, which paid tribute to when Mizzou admitted its first black student. They would demand President Tim Wolf go, or until my internal organs fail and my life is lost, Butler would say. Let's also not forget, this was just a year removed from Ferguson, Missouri, when Michael Brown was killed by law enforcement. Thus, the football team took their stand. With students and activists already protesting, the team chose to withhold their labor until Wolf stepped down. They would refuse to play in any games. Coach Gary Pinkel backed his team. Some players would even make an appearance at the encampments, as would
I will give you an answer, and I'm sure it will be a wrong answer.
You gonna Google it?
I will give you an answer, and I'm sure it will be a wrong answer.
What do you think systematic oppression is?
It's systematic oppression is because you don't believe that you have the equal opportunity for success.
You don't
Money.
Did you just blame us for systematic oppression, Tim Wolf?
Wolf himself. They made note of Wolf's shortcomings over and over and over again. In response, Wolf would really dig his heels in and say, I ain't leaving. I'm not resigning. Until, of course, he did, along with the chancellor of the school. Now, just think about who, recently a Mizzou star football player would be in the news to talk about this. It was TJ Moe's entrance into giving these sort of fakakta speeches. And he did it on none other than CNN, which I'll get into in a moment. He would tweet and delete, for some reason, from his account. At the time, of course. In today's social climate, is there anything worse than being called a racist? Even if the white players wanted to oppose, no way they would, he'd ponder. Well, we know you would. Also, why would you? These are the trials and tribulations of young black students on campus saying, hey, this is happening to us. And then TJ Moe is in the corner saying, I don't agree with this. Why wouldn't you agree to it? What is there to disagree on? They are giving you their real life experiences and you're downplaying it. But he would continue. And what if some of the black players wanted to oppose? Now you're not down with the cause. Very little choice for those involved. The whole team was behind it. If I'm a leader in today's climate, I'd be petrified seeing that extreme measures by individuals can get anyone fired regardless of fault. Remarkable. He'd add, if the football players want to make a real impact on the student body, they'll volunteer to go speak at the diversity classes. Wow. Hey, shut up about expressing your opinion on your real life experiences. Go teach a diversity class. Incredible. This man was team captain? Incredible. Nothing has brought cultures together in America more than football. Oh, here we go. Need to show society what America can be, how it is in the locker room. He'd fire off once more. And here is what he said on CNN.
And if you want to continue to recruit African-American players and you're showing them that you won't stand behind them in something that they believe in, I don't know that you'd be ever be able to do that again.
Pause here. We're talking about having an anti-racism agenda on campus. Why does this tickle your fancy in the worst way? Why are you so opposed to this? He'd give more.
If we're always going to blame the leaders of what's going on, then we need to remove the President of the United States and the governor of every state, because there's a lot of murders that happen frequently.
And then he'd add this.
In fact, we're living in 2015. This is probably the least racist time in history.
He said it. So Mo would give his opinion once more, airing dirty laundry on his team in 2015 because he did not like the way that some players conducted themselves and he decided to throw them under the bus. It led to a lot of players calling him out. Lucas Vincent, who played with Mo, would write in response, if you want to throw your teammates under the bus just so people will pay attention to you, you're no teammate of mine. Another former teammate of Mo's, Jimmy Hunt, would write, some people have no honor for their brotherhood. Got to be more careful with what you say. Everyone has a past, and a lot of people know yours. Karma is a B. Then there would be another incident involving Mo. When he said former Mizzou quarterback James Franklin's girl problems would play a pivotal role in the team's loss to Florida in 2012. I mean, that is horrendous. But I think it speaks to the character and how this man is who he is today. This victimhood that he has. He thinks anything that goes against him is an anti-white, anti-Christian sentiment, when really he loses what it means to be human. And look no further than kissing the behind of that man in the host chair.